Alright boys, we are back and we're going to go over 5 of the greatest sell high targets for fantasy basketball right now that you need to ship off your team before regression hits and you can reap the rewards in the second half of the fantasy basketball season. Don't forget to check out part 1 of this video, my buy low players in fantasy basketball. I love trading, you love trading, we all love trading. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Chris and welcome to Number 2 Sports. Okay, before we get into it, like we always do, let's recap the previous sell high video all the way back from December 4th. So first up, we had Mikal Bridges, who was ranked 5 at the time. Now he's ranked 44. Next up, we had Ryan Rollins, who's ranked 23 at the time, to rank 48. And then we had Desmond Bane, who's ranked 53, and now he's ranked 17. So the Franz Wagner injury has actually really kind of screwed this up. I legit still think this is a sell high potential for Desmond Bane. I didn't want to do like another whole section on him since the last time we talked about this. I already did, and nothing's really changed. Like little things have tweaked here and there, but everything that I said still kind of stayed true. And when all the big boys are healthy and playing, I still think we'll see a dip in points, production, usage, everything to do with Desmond Bane on that Orlando Magic squad. And then last up, we had one of the easiest sell highs of all time, Keegan Murray, who's ranked 9, and now he's ranked 107. So definitely not as good as the buy lows, but still pretty decent overall besides the Desmond Bane thing. But again, like I said, I still think Desmond Bane is sort of a sell high. So if you do have him on your rosters, definitely consider it going forward. But okay, enough of that. Let's get into the video. Okay, first up, we're gonna have a guy that I have talked about a bunch in the weekly waiver wire videos. I've pumped his tires all season long as his season long hold, but the way he's playing right now just seems too good to be true, too unsustainable due to some injury bumps, and that is Anthony Black from the Orlando Magic. So why has Mr. Black's value been inflated? Well, if we just look at his last 2 weeks, he's shooting over 50% from the floor on 17 attempts per game. He's hitting 3 threes per game and averaging almost 24 points. Add in that all his steals, assists, and blocks have all increased from his season-long averages, and you can see why he's ranked 34th in the last 30 and 9th in the last 14. So now, first off, I just don't think Black's going to continue to shoot over 50% from the floor going forward. Like, I love the kid, I love his skill set, I love him as a player, but that's just not reasonable to expect. And I don't really think anyone would argue with that either. And secondly, his shot attempts are just out of control lately. And a huge part of that is the Franz Wagner injury when he went down on December 9th. But I know you might be looking at the game logs and say, well, there actually isn't that big of a difference from before that and going forward. But don't forget, Paolo Banchero has been hurt and was out at that time before that, as well as Jalen Suggs. So really, they've been down 2 main contributors for quite some time, and it's really bumped up Anthony Black's shot attempts and has allowed him to work as a number 2, number 3 option on most nights, while both those big boys have been out. Really, we have to look all the way back to November 12th when both those guys were playing, Wagner and Banchero. And if we do, he was barely cracking double-digit shot attempts, let alone having like a base of 15 and upwards of 20 per night like he is right now. Those 2 stars missing time along with Suggs has definitely bumped up Black's usage, his touches, his minutes, his counting stats have been slightly inflated, you name it. And again, when those big boys do return, I think everything should decrease across the board. Black has also had an insane mini run from deep, going 17 and 34 over a 4-game stretch, which massively has bumped up his rank. And I definitely don't need to do any more bets about showing hole. Black is just not going to shoot over 55% from deep going forward. So with the imminent return of some of these injured guys, I definitely think Black's usage and attempts and percentages have nowhere to go but down. I think we could be looking at his best stretch of the season here when it's all said and done. Now, don't get me wrong, I do still really like Black as a player, and I do think he'll still be useful for 12 league teams going forward. But if someone in your league thinks his recent play is the norm and sustainable, that's when you want to make the deal, take the short-term hit, but get the long-term gain. So if you get Anthony Black for like any top 60 player right now, that is the exact type of deal you want to do and reap the rewards to close out the second half of the season once Orlando gets all these guys back and healthy and full strength. And then we'll probably see Black revert to a solid end of the roster type guy, not a superstar level player like he's been performing. If you could get like a Dyson Daniels, Peyton Pritchard, or Brandon Miller type player for Anthony Black right now, I would seriously consider doing it. So next up, we have someone who may be a bit harder of a sell high, because it's always awkward to be like, this guy's just so damn good right now. But you know what? I don't want him, man. I'm going to let you have him. I'm going to let your team better. I'm going to take a hit. I'm going to make my team worse just because I love you, bro. And you know, I just don't want this level of current production on my team any longer. So it's definitely tougher to pull off trades like that with guys that have been around for a long time. People know what they are, kind of know what their ceiling is. So I always want to try and include guys that you probably actually could sell high instead of trades that would happen in your league, and people are like, there's just no shot. Like, I don't want this guy. Everyone in the world knows he's a sell high. So it is just a good thing to remember when you're trying to sell a player high, is that you're more likely than not going to take a short-term hit, but you're going to recoup that value and you're going to gain value later on in the season. That's how you're going to get a sell high trade done. More likely than not, you're not going to be selling a guy high for someone as equal or better value than that player currently is. It's the other way around. But sorry about that little rant. Back to the player, and that's going to be Mr. Andrew Wiggins from the Miami Heat. So this is a guy that I've seen his name float around on a lot of sell high videos, names, articles, you name it. And really, it does make sense, because why is his value being inflated? Well, for starters, he's shooting 50% from the floor the last 2 weeks, and that's a big old alarm bell right there. That should be ringing off in your noggin. Wiggins has never really come close to averaging anywhere near 50% from the floor in his 14-year NBA career, and I don't think the vet has suddenly magically unlocked something in his game to allow him to do that. And really, if you look closer, you can just narrow it down to a few teams that don't really play much defense at all. Will he really shot the ball well and definitely bumped his average up. And surprise, surprise, Bam as well as Hero missed both of those games. So Wiggins having 2 of his best games in like the last month with both those guys missing, that's not a coincidence. Wiggins has also been blocking shots at a career high pace. He's currently averaging 1.1 per game, which would be his highest total since the 2019 season with Golden State. Add in the fact he's shooting over 41% from 3 over his last 11 games, and he's never been better than the 39% 3-point shooter. In the last few years, he's actually been a 35, 37, 36% 3-point shooter from deep. And you can clearly see Wiggins is just playing over his head right now. So I would definitely be looking to sell Wiggins, as I just don't think he's going to continue to shoot 50% or close to it going forward. When Hero returns, his uses, touches, and counting stats all should take a pretty big hit. And I just don't think we'll see this Mutombo type level shot blocking from the soon to be 31-year-old to close out the season. I do think Wiggins is a solid player. I do like him, the good old Canadian guy. I just don't think he's a top 40 level player like he's been in the last 30 days. Can he finish in the top 75? Probably. So if anyone was wanting to take Wiggins on right now, it's like a top 50, 60 player rest of season, you smash that, Soulja Boy, and Superman that. But no, in all seriousness, you trade Wiggins right away. Okay, next up, let's get a little spicy here. Let's get a little saucy with this one. I'm really curious what you guys think, what owners of this player think, if they're selling high, if they're holding on tight for dear fucking life, if they're never going to let go. But who I'm talking about is the #1 ranked player in the last 14 days and the #1 ranked player in the last 30 days. He has been scoring at will, stuffing it at will, doing anything he wants, even playing back-to-backs. For Pete's sake. Like, who even is this guy? Well, it's Mr. Kawhi Leonard. First off, before we get into anything, even looking at anything, Kawhi Leonard has played 18 games in a row. 18 games in a row. Just let that sink in for a second here. And that includes back-to-backs. So who is this man? And what the fuck happened to the load management bullshit that he's been doing for like the last decade? The broken player who refuses to play over 60 games more than once in the last 7 seasons. Now, I'm not going to sit here and just tell you this isn't sustainable, because if he stays healthy and playing every day, it's kind of hard to argue that it won't. Sure, there are some things that I do think are anomaly and that are going to come down. Like, is he going to shoot 96% from the free throw line the rest of the season, since he's never even been a 90% free throw in his entire 14-year NBA career? Probably not. Is he going to average over 2.7 steals per game over his last 10 when he's roughly been like a 1.6 guy since entering the league? Probably not. Or is he going to average over 1.3 blocks and over 37 points per game with 4 made 3-pointers in his last 2 weeks? Probably not, but like, whatever. Those aren't even good stats, man. I got some buddies in Rec League who can drop 6 points on 14% shooting. So, you know, I see a shooter. I see skill when I see it. Kawhi would be riding the pine on our team right now. No, but in all seriousness, don't get this twisted. This is strictly all about his body holding up. Like, why the fuck has he been load managed his entire career practically? And then all of a sudden they're just like, screw it. You're going to play every game. You're going to play 18 games in a row. You're going to play back-to-backs. You're playing every day now. Who cares? Like, is it because OKC has their first round pick this year? Is it because LA season is on absolute life support right now, hanging on for dear life? Is it all that drama that was surrounding Leonard in the offseason and during the season about Aspire? Is he just wanting to shove it down everyone's throat, saying that when I want to be a superstar, I still can? You're going to pay me from side companies, bitch. Realistically, realistically, it's probably a combination of all those reasons, but I know I'm perked to the moon that I drafted him in a bunch of best ball leagues this year. It's kind of sad that I don't have him in any of my regular season long ones, but if I did, I would definitely be considering moving him, but it has to be for the right price. It will have to be an absolute haul on the precipice that it's going to eliminate any potential headache or injury risk in the second half of the year if his load management stuff, his injury stuff just magically pops back up the farther and farther that LA gets away from the playoffs, or that this season just becomes a lost thing and Kawhi's just like, all right, I'm just shutting this shit down. It is a massive risk and you'd be hedging a lot of bunnies on prior injury history, but the track record suggests it. And it's not like Kawhi is getting any younger here, people. That's why all this is so confusing. You would need to get at least a top 15 or top 20 player in return just to mitigate the risk that Kawhi is just a dog now without restrictions and he's going to play 85% of the games the second half of the year. But if that doesn't happen, and I'm super skeptical that it's not, the reward could be something that legends are made of, the legends dream of. If you can pull it off and Kawhi puts his diaper back on for the second half of the season, it's big ball moves with risk for foreplay. I am so curious. Let me know, all you Kawhi owners down below. Are you even sniffing considering selling him, or are you actually trying to ship him out right now because you don't believe in that body, you don't believe in that load management, injury risk, all the yada yada stuff that goes along with Leonard? I'm really curious. Shoot me a message down below. Next up, we have a third-year breakout player on one of the worst teams in the league who's just been shooting the lights out, making real strides in his all-around game. But were his December numbers legit and sustainable? We'll find out when we talk about Keontae George from the Utah Tankers. So why has George's value been inflated? Well, his field goal percentage by month this season has been 40.6%, in October, 45% in November, and 47.4% in December. His best month of the year by far. Now, do I think he's making improvements? Sure. But do I think he's a 47.5% from the floor type guy going forward rest of season? I highly doubt it. Also, if we look at his 3-point percentages by month for the same thing, it was 25.8% in October, 34.7% in November, and 43.6% in December. Again, December has been his best month by far shooting the ball. He's just been shooting the lights out. Absolutely. I don't think his December numbers are sustainable, especially not from deep. I just don't think he's an over 40% from three type of guy when he was 33, 34% in his first 2 seasons in the NBA. Yes, I do think he's improved, and I think this is a legit breakout. I just find it hard to believe his recent percentages will hold up rest of the season in the second half. So to kind of reiterate why I think he's going to cool down, or why he's bound to go down just a little bit, is because December has practically been the greatest month of his 3-year career so far shooting the ball. I think the percentages are bound to come down, especially from deep. I do believe, again, this is a breakout year from George. I'm just not buying that he's a top 10, top 20 type player like how he's been performing the last few weeks. When the threes do revert back and his percentages do come down, I think he'll be more like a top 50, top 60 guy. I do think his counting stats will most likely hold due to his usage and minutes. So if you can't get like a top 50-ish guy for George, you probably shouldn't trade him. You should hold on and destroy the ride. But if someone's willing to give up a top 50 player thinking that George's recent production, especially in the month of December, is sustainable and is what the likely outcome is for the second half of the year, you should move on that, get a top 50 player, and laugh in the second half of the season when George inevitably reverts back down and his shooting comes down just a little bit, and you get a nice advantage heading into the fantasy basketball playoffs. Some trade ideas I do for George right now would be like an Evan Mobley, De'Aaron Fox, maybe a Josh Giddey if that owner's panicking a little bit about his recent injuries and he's getting impatient about him coming back. Really, any top solid, rock solid top 50 guy that has no shutdown risk, I'd highly consider moving George from him before we get into the second half of the fantasy basketball season. Next up, we have the 6'10" 3-point pull-up jump shooting wing who's really coming to his own this year in his new home in Brooklyn, who's actually swinging the rock on offense, and his brother is one of the best gamblers of our generation, Jonte. And that is Michael Porter Jr. from the Brooklyn Nets. So why has Michael Porter Jr.'s value been inflated lately? Well, first off, Cam Thomas hasn't been playing for a long time. I know he's back now, but they really had nobody else on Brooklyn. Absolutely everything ran through MPJ. He was shooting, he was passing, he was rebounding, he was playing defense. You name it, everything flew through him. His usage rate was sky high. And really, you can just see it looking at his game logs. He was stuffing it, or he has been stuffing it each and every night. Also, he's been shooting over 40 46% from deep in his last 11 games and over 50% from the floor in the same time span. If we just look at December, just narrow it down to December, he's shooting 47.5%, while he shot 34.3% in November and 41% in October. He's getting up over 10 threes per game right now, and we all know that I just don't think he's going to continue shooting over 47% from deep moving forward. It's unrealistic to think of from the 6'10 jump shooter. Michael Porter Jr. is also averaging over 1.2 steals per month right now, and in his career, he's only ever been over one once, way back in 2021, and he only played 9 games, so really you can just pretty much throw that out and say he's never really been over one his entire career. So I don't think he's turned in any prime Dyson Daniels here in Brooklyn. And then lastly, besides turning into Dyson Daniels, the guy has actually looked like Shaq out there the way he's bringing down boards. He's averaged over 11 just last week alone and 8.8 the last 2 weeks. Now, he's always been a solid rebounder, obviously 6'10 with lanky arms, huge wingspan, and can jump out of the gym, but I don't think he's consistently turned into this double-double type guy. Also, when did Michael Porter Jr. all of a sudden just decide that he was going to pass the rock? Like, it used to be the freest prop bet of all time in Denver, taking his under on his assists. The dude never swung the rock on the perimeter. It was actually just awesome to watch. Honestly, though, the assists probably stay with this new mindset and approach in Brooklyn, but I just want to touch base on it because it's so different than what we've seen in years past with him. So why do I think he's going to cool off? Why do I want to sell high on him? Well, first off, the big elephant in the room, big risk with the shutdown season with Brooklyn. They have nothing to play for. They're going to tank. That's going to be the number one cause here in the second half of the year. It's how many games does Michael Porter Jr. have left in his season? Do we really expect him to be playing basketball in March when most people's fantasy playoffs are? Probably not. Now, the second big thing besides the shutdown is he's a potentially really highly targeted trade candidate right now for Brooklyn. So if he gets traded to a contender, he's definitely not going to have this free run, free will, shoot as he will, usage, everything running through him on that team. He'll definitely be the second option at best, most likely the third, and he'll kind of revert back to, I think, like his Denver days. So I would expect there would be a massive drop in all his stats across the board if that does happen. And then lastly, Cam Thomas is going to continue to ramp up here over the next few weeks before shutdown season, and I definitely think that will dip into his usage, into his touches, into his shot attempts. So I do think he is playing a little above his head right now because, again, I said there was nobody there in Brooklyn, but when Ken Thomas is back, he is a little ball dominant and he does get his shots up. So I think Michael Porter Jr.'s stats might just come down a little bit once Thomas is fully up to speed. But besides that, there's still a good month left with Michael Porter Jr. They're going to get a ton of usage, a ton of stuff out of him. So I do think it's a perfect time to sell before we get closer and closer then he gets traded or shutdown season continues to creep up on us. Let's try and recoup as much value as we can from Michael Porter Jr. right now. If you're in a roto league, you can probably disregard this. This is definitely for like points and category leagues and head to head. So some trade packages that I would accept for MPJ, like right now would be Franz Wagner, would be Anaku Okonwu. I know he's not exciting, but he's been rock solid. De'Aaron Fox again, Josh Giddey again, Jalen Williams. I would sell now and guarantee yourself a guy that'll be playing in March for your fantasy basketball playoffs. All right, but I think that's it for this video. If you haven't checked out the part 1 of this video, the buy low video, make sure you check it out here. It's going to be on one of these sides. If you aren't subbed, make sure you smash that button. We're trying to get to 2K subs. That would be sweet. I appreciate all you watching, commenting. Again, I'll try to reply to every single comment, every single video, so shoot a message down below. Also, I know I've just been terrible on the waiver wire videos. I know I said I'd never miss one, and well, I have, just shit happens. I'm going to try and get back into that routine of doing a waiver wire video every weekend, so stay on the lookout for that. I'm going to get back in there, boys. Don't worry, all right? I hope you guys have a good rest of your week, weekend, day, night, wherever you are, and I'll see you guys real soon.